Do you want to start a thriving real estate career, but don't know where and how to start? Do you want to become a successful realtor or investor, but lack the required knowledge and skills? Gear yourself up with the best and actionable advice here on the Real Estate Rundown. Tune in as Shannon Robnett talks with industry veterans about all kinds of asset classes, market trends, challenges, management techniques, and success stories. Listen to informative discussions with valuable tips that will serve as the foundation for your incredible real estate venture. Now, here's your host, Shannon Robnett.
Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Rundown. We are in season 2, and this week has been my week. I've got the opportunity to interview a really good friend of mine, Wagner Nolasco. I get the same opportunity to interview a very dear friend of mine today, Patrice Bobo-Miles, who I have gotten to know and love the authenticity. So you guys are going to dig this conversation, but let me turn it over to Patrice so she can introduce herself and tell us who she is and why she's so stinking fabulous.
Okay, so it's not going to be a big secret that I just absolutely love Shannon Robnett, but my name is Patrice Bobo-Miles, and I do a couple of different things. I have been a mortgage loan originator for 25 years, and so, certainly we can talk about what is going on in our market right now. About a year ago, I became an investor. So I became a landlord about a year ago. So buy and hold investor. I have long-term renters in my property, and it's been a really great experience. Now, why it took me that long, of course, that's its own other story, right, Shannon?
We're going to get into it.
And I am also a prosperity strategist and mentor. So in that capacity and through my company, P Bobo-Miles Collective, I mentor and work with clients to help them work through money blocks and money traumas. And in doing so, we really tap into what are the emotions that are ruling how you overspend, oversave, and just really don't have a real clarity in how to move with your money, have your money work for you and grow with your money. So really work hard on that. And then we start to, build that foundation, a firm financial foundation to help them move forward in their money goals.
So we've talked about this a lot, you and I, offline, and not just today, but I think we've had a half a dozen conversations about this. And one day it's the conversation about why maybe you are your perfect candidate to be your first client in your prosperity business and get that unblocked. And then I'm calling you and you're like, oh my God, you have money trauma, honey. And then, these are the conversations we have. And I had things that made me sick when I thought about them with money, but I didn't think I had money trauma. Now, in 2008, nothing was going good for anybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we look back at that caused a lot of life events for a lot of people. And now we're starting to see some of that as we move forward. But what is it that, what is it? We hear about trauma like that all the time with relationships or with, parenting trauma or childhood trauma. But what is it? How does it manifest in the money trauma in your business world? How does that happen in your business life?
Interestingly enough, the money, the mismanagement, I guess, is the best way to say it. So the mismanagement of money is like the actualization of what the trauma is. Because a lot of people want to talk about, money's a tool. There's no emotion attached to your money. You should just be able to look at the numbers and make this decision. And here are these strategies to save. And here are these strategies to pay off your debt. And here are these strategies to invest and grow your wealth and save for retirement and do all of these things. But the long and the short of it is, your money is a relationship. And it's a relationship like a marriage, like a partnership. You have a
like we break up all the time, me and my money.
Yeah, me and my money used to break up quite a bit too. It was kind of toxic. That's the case though. That's the case. It's an emotional thing. And, I could go back and tell you my money tales because I came to this end of it after working through my own crap.
Yeah.
Working through, the guilt and the shame and all that it was, the money infidelity in my marriage. And the first time I said that word, somebody looked at me and went, "Oh," and I said, "I want you to think about that, because what is an infidelity? It's the breaking of a trust."
There you go. Thank you for
Right?
helping me out with that.
Welcome. But the infidelity is a breaking of a trust. And so, what are some simple ways to do that? Let's say you decide to open charge accounts, but you have the bill sent to another address so your spouse never knows they exist. Guilty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's say, you go shopping every week, 7 days, 5 days, and you hide the bags in your trunk and you wait for your spouse to leave the house. And you carry it all in and you take off the tags and you hang it up and you take the shoes out of the box and you put them in the closet and you put the handbags where they go, and then you discard all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Guilty.
Yep.
And when your spouse when you finally let them in on that, that's a huge betrayal. I mean, it's a financial betrayal of trust.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
But where does that come from? I mean, here you have people that in every other aspect of their life, right? They're not lying to their spouse. They're not down at the bar, trying to find somebody else. They're not doing all the other things, but this is still, when you point it out like that, this is still cheating. This is still doing that. Where does that come from? Because you take a normal person who would never in a million years do that to their partner, but this is part of their life. But where does that come from? Why does that happen?
It can come from a lot of places. And my story and working with some of my clients, some of it goes back to, financial literacy is not necessarily taught, right? So we pick up money habits by what we see, but we have to realize that we're seeing that through the lens of a child, right? And so you kind of see what you see and you interpret what you think you interpret. Growing up, I grew up in a middle-class military family. Didn't want for a whole lot, honestly. We were kind of spoiled and we're fortunate in that respect. So, when I got married, and I got married young, I was 22 when I got married. I mean, my husband and I we didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. Right. Like a lot of couples starting out that young, right?
Yeah.
And I've thought about it because Shannon, I've been asked this question a lot of times, and there came a part with, again, growing up, and it was kind of like when I turned 16, I got a car. When it was time to start school, we went school clothes shopping. Right. I always had new clothes to start school. Right. I needed $20 to go hang out at the mall. It was like, hey, can I have $20? And I just get $20 and go to the mall. And I understand how fortunate it is to grow up like that.
Yeah.
So to go from that to, having to work a full-time job, living with my husband, we're now adulting, Right. And there was also part of me that lost a sense of who I was, especially after we had our first kid. I was 24. And so I became, my husband's wife, and I became my child's mother. And somewhere along the line, I forgot who I was as an individual. And so some of it was trying to fill what that void was. And some of it was, I work in this house too. Right. I contribute to pay the bills. So if I want to do a little shopping because I want to do a little shopping, leave me the hell alone and let me do it. Right. I'm a spender. My husband's a saver.
Yes, I knew that.
Did you know that?
I've had the pleasure of meeting Mike a couple of times. I know that.
Yes. And so, I mean, it's different layers, whether you're spending from a place of, like I was trying to fill a void. How about a place of fear? A place of scarcity. Yeah. So there are so many things that can tie into what that is. And 9 times out of 10, you are using your money, you're using your credit to fill something that you feel is missing in you. And so it's the treat yourself mentality, right? Because there's a high when you go shopping. It's that instant gratification. And I was talking to one of my clients recently, and I said, it's kind of like being an alcoholic. You're not going to drink anymore, but then you do.
Right.
And it feels good that first drink, and then you wake up the next morning.
Right.
And
Right.
then the cycle repeats itself.
Yeah.
I hate the term retail therapy. That's one of the worst terms anyone could have ever created. So, it is really getting a hold of number one, your emotions, really looking in the mirror and figuring out. And then number two, breaking a lot of really bad habits and creating new habits, better habits to replace those.
And that's one of the things that I look at, out of the fear. I remember, and I use this story quite a bit, where my son, when it came time to buy his first house, he didn't want to, because he saw what his mother and I went through when the downturn happened in 2008, and all of his friends, their parents were losing their house because everybody we knew was in construction, right? Mm-hmm. And here you've got these traumatic issues as a child, and they played out there. And I remember sitting there thinking, wow, my son has this trauma, not realizing I had some of it in my own life, right? And I see that now as, and unfortunately, mine didn't manifest when things were terrible. Mine is manifesting that things are great, right? And just to be honest, guys, we've talked a lot about this offline, so I'm going to bring it up right now because I'm getting a therapy session and y'all got to listen to it. But the reality is, I'm having a real issue. I'm looking at the price of mayonnaise in the store, right? Because I want to make sure I get the best possible deal. And what I don't realize is that I just spent 30 minutes of my time saving $14 clipping coupons, and my billable rate's slightly more than that, right? Mm-hmm. And I walk out of the store and I'm sitting there going, I don't have enough time in my life, but I just saved $13.73. And it's just like that. I feel terrible because I wasted my time based on a habit that's infiltrated my life, based on an experience that I had 14 years ago, mm-hmm. that has completely reshaped my life. But there's an underlying feeling, there's an underlying something here that just makes me hurt, just makes me cringe. I was talking with another gentleman today, and they were talking about a deal that went south and they lost their earnest money. And I just got sick in my stomach because I know that feeling. I've done that deal. I don't think anybody that's been in real estate for a while has not had their earnest money forfeited at some point, but it physically made me ill. And, you wonder how something that is it's just money. Patrice, me, I'm not a person that puts all of his value in money, but yet it's such a part of my life that when these things happen, I feel physical things over an inanimate object that I'll give if you need $100, I got $100 for you. If you need help getting your car fixed, I'm the guy that will help you. But at the end of the day, it's still tied into my spirit, and all of mine is negative. I don't have any positive, right? I don't have any money elations,
So what is it that you feel you're going to lose? Or is it just that it's not so much the money, but it's a sense of I failed somewhere?
I don't know if it's the fact that I failed and then I had to get tight with money. Whereas before, things were fine. I didn't care what we'd spent on the grocery bill. I didn't care what that jacket cost, or, what the meal cost or whatever. And then when we went to not having anything, 9 and 10, nobody had anything, right? We went to that space, and now we got to pinch absolutely every penny, that we kind of get off track on that we forget that there's a time to do that. And not that you always have to be physically responsible, and not that you can always afford to not be fiscally responsible, right? But at the same time, there was that part of me that I look at it, and I think, honestly, I think the fact that I I mean, I was 32 years old. I had a balance sheet with at about, I don't know, 28, $29 million, right? I mean, life was pretty good, that I had a huge reversal of fortune. Things have swung back the other way. But the reality was maybe it's the guilt of having that and not having saved it so that I could keep it for when I needed it to protect my kids, but that has influenced decisions I make now. And I can't find an example of where it's been positive.
Look at that guilt and fear. What are those? They're emotions.
Well, yeah.
Guilt and fear.
Yeah.
And so, so now you are overcompensating to the point that you're not necessarily moving forward in some aspects of what your financial journey is.
Right.
And I'm not saying you're not making smart decisions, because I know you. I mean, I know you.
But it's still jaded.
Well, and it may always be jaded. I mean, I was in the real estate industry in 2007, 2008. I mean, I lived through all that, right?
Yeah.
Hell, we almost lost our house.
Yeah.
I've made more money than some people have lost before. Yeah. And so to end up in a position that the market crashed and the money wasn't there to support us through what that was. And, at that point in time, because my husband and I were so different on how we looked at money, we didn't have joint accounts. He wasn't on any of my credit stuff. I wasn't on any of his, with the exception of the house. That was it. Yeah. Cars were in my name. Credit cards were in my name. With what I do for a living, I made substantially more money than he did. And so when that happened, here's the guilt.
Right.
Here come the notices. Here's the failure. Here's the embarrassment.
Yes. Yeah. So let's take what we learned. So we got the money trauma, right? And we're standing here looking at a future that has quite a bit of uncertainty in it, right?
It does.
It's in no way the same as 2008, but we just celebrated or just had a remembrance for September 11th, and there was that trauma that happened in our lives, and you look back on it, and there's been 8 or 10 traumas that have happened in our lives. COVID working backwards. I mean, COVID shut everything down, and then there's always insecurity. But we're standing here now, and interest rates are climbing, and housing is slowing down, and mortgages are slowing down. And tell me you don't feel some of the things, like your spidey senses are going, hey, remember 08, remember 08, remember 09.
Oh, absolutely.
But
it would be human if you didn't.
What are you telling yourself today? Because that remember that everything that you experienced there is coming forward. How do you work through this and stay in front of it and not get overwhelmed by the past coming back and going, remember me?
Are you a smarter person today than you were then?
I would like to think I am.
Are you making better decisions today than you were then?
I would like to think I am.
Have you put aside a good bit of money? So
that answer is yes.
Okay.
Because I remember 08.
But that's all you can do, because you're never going to forget 08.
You're
I'm never going to forget what that felt like.
Yep.
When I got we can foreclose on your home, or you can do a deed in lieu of foreclosure. Yeah. I'm never going to forget what that feels like.
No.
I'm never going to forget being sued in court for a credit card that I couldn't pay off.
Right.
I'm never going to forget what that feels like.
Right.
But in not forgetting, I'm also not making the same mistakes.
Right. So when you're working with people and is that how you deal with the trauma, is to look at try to figure out what caused the trauma and then try and set up the opposite action that will allow you to rest assured that you're not going to wind up in the same situation? Is that how you?
Every person's different. And I will tell you, when I'm working with my clients, I tell them my money story, and no, I'm not going to tell it today, But I tell them what my money story is, because they need to recognize that I'm a no judgment zone. I am a judgment-free zone.
That is a true fact, ladies and gentlemen. This woman, I guarantee you, she will not judge you.
Mm-mm. No, because if it could have been done, I did it.
She's not going to let you pull crap. But if,
no, she won't.
Definitely be a shoulder to cry on, and that's for sure.
But, so that's part of it. And as they're writing their stories, they really start to see, what affects it. Because again, I've told my story, but I got more clarity when I wrote my story, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I can go back and read it every once in a while, because the habits are bad habits. And in some instances, that instant gratification you get, that's a high. Like you can't, if I find a Louis bag on sale, and it's $300 as opposed to $700, there was a point in time when I go, oh, it's on sale, I'm gonna get it. But you know what? I have handbags in my closet. I don't need another Louis. I don't need another Coach.
Yeah.
So that in itself is progress.
Yeah.
So it's really looking at, what do I have? What do I need? And I mean need.
Yeah.
Versus what do I want?
Right.
And I mean, I had to track my spending for a while, like where is my money going? Because, we don't handle currency anymore.
No.
Think about it. Everything's digital.
Right.
Debit cards, credit cards, Apple Pay, Google Pay, whatever it is.
Yep.
So, you click, you ding, you swipe, and a week later you look and you're like, where'd that $1,000 go?
Yeah.
Right? Where did it go?
Sure. For sure.
And so, I really try to bring it all the way back down to the basics. Like, I have my clients carry cash. Oh, but you know what? When you take that $100 bill out of your wallet because you got to go pay for something, number one, it makes you think twice about whether or not you really want to break it. And number two, you have a tendency to really look at what you're spending your money on.
More of an object lesson that gets you to refocus on it.
It does, because it's not the click, it's not the swipe, it's not the ding. It is actual currency.
Right.
Actual currency.
So when you look at that and I'm thinking through some of my stuff too. I mean, I get to be to a place where, we went to Vegas and I bought a couple of suits. Right. Mm-hmm. And my wife was cheering me on. Right. Like, that is such a big thing for me to spend money on that kind of stuff, because that's on me. Right. That's something. I mean, I wear them for business, but that's on me. And I'm still sitting there going, I don't want to spend money, but I will go out and buy 10 pieces of property. I will be running my credit card up and down, trying to get an earnest money to take, right? Because that's business. But then I have that where I won't get out of business mode enough to realize that the reason I do this is for myself and my family. Right. Mm-hmm. And so while we're polar opposites to some degree, the trauma is from the same place.
It is. And so, I know, because I know as a parent, and I used to tell my kids, we're spending everything. When we go, we're not leaving you anything. Yeah. And of course I was joking about it, but my kids are like, really, Mom? They're like, really? Yeah. But so I understand the desire, right, to make sure that your family is taken care of. Yeah. But in taking care of your family, why are you ignoring what some of your actual needs are? Are you not worth taking care of yourself?
See, and I have this,
because Jesse doesn't have a problem taking care of you.
No.
And
do I have a problem with taking care of her?
No. And you don't have a problem taking care of anybody else. But when it comes to Shannon, taking care of Shannon, for some reason, in your mind, you don't feel that you are worth what it is, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Or I can put it off for another day because I need to do this for such and such. Or, I really want to go buy this 600 acres of land today, so I can't see spending $1,200 on this suit.
Exactly.
Because, I see that.
And the two don't equate, right? I mean, the $1,200 isn't going to help with the land purchase. However, the suit might help close the deal, right?
It might help close the deal.
And, but I also see this with my mom, right? My favorite phrase or not my favorite phrase, but the phrase I find myself using all the time with my mom is, we'll be talking about something and she goes, but I just don't think we should spend the money. And I said, hey, Mom, hold on. I'm going to put you on hold. I'm going to call my brother. We're going to have a finance committee meeting. I pretend like I get off the phone. I go back on and I said, yeah, listen, the estate planning committee said y'all could spend it, because it's the same thing. I'm like, what do you want to leave us?
You grew up hearing it. Did you grow up hearing that?
Oh man, my mom is the nicest dressed person you ever seen that's never seen the inside of a retail store. Everything she wears is secondhand, right? Mm-hmm. She grew up with that mentality. Now,
and so did you.
And so did I. And that, I don't know if that's good or that's bad or whatever, but the reality is it's just like, my mom felt guilty because the last time she came down to see me in Puerto Rico, I sent her back first class. And she goes, what did you do? And I said, what do you mean? I said, you're 74 years old. You're flying all day. I'm not going to have you sitting in the back, sit up front, And for me, it was no big deal. For her, it was like, oh, what are we going to do? And I'm talking about people that retired 25 years ago on cash flow.
Yep.
They're not broke, right?
Yep.
But here is this blockage. And the thing that it does, if I look at their life, they've had all their assets paid for 25 years, right? Mm-hmm. What they could have grown that into has been hindered by that vision of having everything paid for. So they got it all cash and they didn't have any leverage on it. And that was a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. But they could have grown that amount by using moderate leverage, being smart about it. Mm-hmm. But that blockage has been there that has kept them from doing that. The other thing that I see, and I know this for a fact, it's affected their taxes. They have paid 3 times the taxes I have over the last 20 years. Actually, 4 times, right? Mm-hmm. But they own everything for cash, for there's no depreciation. Mm-hmm. There's no protection. Mm-hmm. And it comes from that. It's an absolute blindness to the facts. And this is the thing, right? I can see the sliver in my mother's eye while I've got this log sticking out of my own, right? Uh-huh. So that's probably why you haven't right.
You were raised with it. You were raised with that mentality. You were raised with it. And remember, what did I say? Our relationship with money often stems to what we saw or heard or learned as children, right? And so you grew up hearing, and because this is what I heard 2 things when you said this. You grew up hearing, oh, we can't do that. Oh, we can't afford to buy that right now. Oh, we should wait to do that. Maybe we should save a little more. So there was always we don't ever have enough to do what we want to do right now, right? And so let's switch it to the business aspect of things, because I know your business mind. People don't know how genius you are. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Don't roll your eyes at me, Shannon.
You're not supposed to tell everybody.
Too late. You're a genius. Yeah. But what I hear is your mom and dad didn't leverage what they could have leveraged. They have paid more in taxes. They could have grown more. So what you're doing in your personal life is you are adopting what you grew up hearing. Oh, I can't do that right now. I'm not worth spending that money right now. We can wait to do, I can put this off for a little bit longer because I can take this time and this money and I can put it into growing and leveraging my assets, because I don't want to end up like my parents without, with paying $1 bajillion in taxes every year, with not taking advantage of the assets that I do have. And how can I leverage and grow that? Because I still want to make sure that I've provided for my children and my family when I'm no longer here.
Man, you are
Those
good.
are the 2 things I heard.
You are good. You are good. Because that, when I really stop and think about it, that is exactly where it's at. And so, when you see those blockages, they're stopping you from reaching your full potential. They're stopping you from realizing your ability to be financially free, right? And so when you say financially free, it's probably a whole different connotation than somebody else that says financial freedom is having control of your time and money. Actually, it's exactly that. Instead of having your time or your money and your emotions control you.
Mhm.
Oh, I just got a big light bulb moment right there.
There is such a freedom that comes with realizing that you've always been the one in control.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get to recognizing that you're the one in control, you start to move just a little bit differently. So
financial freedom can come at any level once
at
you
any time.
realize. Once you realize, I mean, you can still be at a JOB, you can still have debt, you can still have student loans, you can still have all that. But when you realize that you're the one that has the ability to control all of those aspects, to increase them or decrease them, to pay them or to let them default, you have all that control.
Mhm.
All of a sudden you have a sense of being okay in that moment.
You kind of figure something out, because money is an inanimate object. It's necessary.
Yes.
Let's be really clear. It's necessary.
Yes.
But it doesn't come in your ear and go, oh, hold on to me. Oh, don't spin me. Right. It doesn't have that control over you. And once you're like, okay. And see, for someone like you who doesn't like to spend money on themselves, one of the things that I would like an exercise I would have for you that you would absolutely hate, but you would have to do it is I don't think I'm
going to like this.
I don't care if it's $200. I don't care if it's $500. I don't care if it's $1,000, but set a limit somewhere between $200 and $1,000. And you have to find a way to spend that on you, letting go of the guilt of spending that money.
I can say that would be not fun.
It would be hard for a while.
Yeah.
It absolutely would be. But is $200 going to make or break your lifetime savings? Is $1,000 going to make or break your lifetime savings?
No.
Okay. And so if it's not going to break your lifetime savings, and I'm sure that there's a certain level of disposable income you have that could take up what that is.
We all do.
Okay. So why is it a problem or an issue?
It's a mental thing. I mean, I'm sitting here clearly seeing
why that exercise comes into play.
Yeah.
If you don't exercise the muscle, it atrophies.
Right. Well,
you're like, I don't like you, Patrice.
No, actually, I'm thinking about that, and I'm really asking myself the question: why would I have this problem? Right? Why would I not find this easier? I mean, this is $200, right? This is
$200.
I'm literally
you spent more than that on dinner, because I've had it with you. I remember fighting with you over a bill.
Yeah.
So, but when you were growing up, let me ask you this, when you were growing up and your mom was saying, oh, I need a new dress, I'm going to go to the secondhand store. Did she go, but you know what, Shannon, I want to take you to whatever. Let's get you a new shirt for school pictures.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you are the male version of your mother's money habits.
Yeah. Well, and then my father's, I saw my father's on the other side, because my dad would spring for lavish family vacations, right? Mm-hmm. And that's my treat, right? I love doing that with my family. Let's all go to San Diego for Christmas and spend, let's have a great week, because that was the one thing that I worked so hard to provide, was the funds to go do something like that. And I wanted everybody to enjoy it. And sometimes it was so stressful getting out of town to go spend the money that we didn't like each other for the first day or two. But, that was, I mean, so I see both of those, and I'm sitting here looking at that, and I'm realizing that those affect my business. I can't help but know. I see where those are affecting my business, and understanding that, you know what, we won't advertise the $200. We won't spend it on me. We won't spend it on that part of it, but we will spend it over here on earnest money or on due diligence or on these things, because there's value, perceived value over here, and there's perceived trauma over here.
There's perceived security in what you're doing over here.
Well, I guess that's the right way to put it.
And real estate, like everything else, is a risk, right?
Right.
It's and we all know markets are cyclical. We're in a down cycle right now, right?
Yep.
So, your investment dollar is certainly not going as far as it did, heck, even 12 months ago, right?
Right.
But it's not stopping you from investing in properties necessarily,
right,
or investing in developments, or syndicating, or whatever it is you're moving forward to do, because you're still looking at, if we're looking at cap rates, if the rate is 4, you're basing your cap rate on 7.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's where, but you still see where you're tripping over this, and my dad, would always find the cheapest piece of dirt he could buy and put a building on it, and then the rents would match, right? Instead of the McDonald's philosophy, where you go buy the most expensive piece of dirt in town and the rents would match, right? And so, and when I'm looking at that, and I don't point out everybody else's in my life to be, they have issues and I don't, but it's more of a situation where obviously we can see other people's faults or other people's situations more clearly than our own. And probably, in all fairness, I should have another episode with you and my mother so that she could tell you all of mine. But since it's my podcast, we're not going to do that. Right. But that's the reality of it. Right. So you can see this, and I'm sitting here and I'm seeing this and I'm going, okay, so we've established that there's issues. So we spend the money, we set the budget, we do these things, and we get comfortable with our limp. So that then we can make a decision that is truly logical and rational and acceptable without the guilt, without the shame, without the feelings that artificially manipulate what we know is right.
Well, and again, it comes down to, you've got bad habits. And so it's a matter of putting in different practices to build better habits. I mean, that's it. This is a habit.
Yeah.
Me hiding bags in the car, right? Yeah. That's a really bad habit.
Yeah.
I had to break that habit.
Yep.
And conversations about money are hard conversations to have, whether you're having them with yourself.
Yeah.
Whether you're having them with a parent or a spouse. If there's one thing, and I will tell you to this day, when my husband and I have to have money conversations, I still am like, oh God, do we have to do this? It's just like, really, do we really have to have this conversation?
Right.
But it's the hard conversations have to happen. So, I don't know how much before you started talking about this with me, you were really aware of. And so until you started talking about it.
I'll tell you one thing I've done, because I wasn't worth it. And that's really kind of a place that I've come from because of some of the choices that I made in 2008 that caused the worldwide meltdown, right? I mean, if you didn't know, that was me. But one of the things that I have done is I have begun spending money on me and education. So I have been spending a lot of money on my personal education, I was just last week, I was with Robert Kiyosaki, Ken McElroy, Chris McIntosh, Simon Black, some really big names. And I spent a lot of money on that opportunity.
Right.
And it's been amazing. It's been amazing what it's done for me, because I'm coming away with the value. And this is kind of an easy thing for me to equate, because I can see value, right? I can see I spent money and I can see I got value, right? But what it's done in my life beyond that has been pretty phenomenal. And that's just been in the last year. I didn't go to classes. I didn't go to seminars. I didn't spend money on myself. I didn't join groups and clubs of people that are like-minded. I didn't do any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I've done that in the last year in a big way.
Right.
It's paid such huge dividends for me as a person. Because when you have Robert Kiyosaki, remember the last conversation you had with him 7 months ago. Wow. You know, you're the #1 financial author in the world, and you remember having a conversation with me 7 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
That and be it the same feeling as a Louis Vuitton bag, I don't know. I've never bought one, right? But that felt really good. But that came at that and now I'm seeing that. Yeah, okay.
You might be worth it, huh?
I might be. Might
be worth it.
Yeah.
I kind of think you're worth it.
So do I have to send you not only a copy of this podcast, but a counseling fee?
No, you don't have to send me a counseling fee. You know, I'm expecting, I don't know, a trip to the beach, maybe. I don't know.
There you go. Well, let's let them get it cleaned up. It's a little bit of a mess right now. But, you know, the other side of that, real quick, Patrice. So when people work with you,
mm-hmm.
they're coming out of this and they're understanding. They're figuring it out and they're able to get over that.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of whether or not they 10x their income, like your favorite friend says, or whether they do other things with it, they're still coming away with that freedom mm-hmm. to understand that these are the things I can control. Mm-hmm. And this is where I'm at.
And you know, I'm going to be honest, there is always a part of it that's going to be a battle.
Yeah.
You know, I still battle demons.
Yeah.
And I'm always going to battle demons because bad habits are bad habits. And again, I liken some of this to some addiction type of behavior.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm always going to battle some demons, but so much, at least from the work that I've done, which is why I've really tapped into the emotional aspect of this. So much of it comes from how you feel about yourself.
Right.
What is your relationship with yourself?
Yeah.
And you know, how are you projecting what that is and how you manage money? Because worth is worth.
Right.
Money has a worth.
Right.
You have a worth. And so, it's kind of pushing that into how you manage that money. I do a lot of mental work and exercises and it's, I'm not going to say it's not hard, but some of it's not fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, I've had really good sessions and I've had some really tough sessions with some of my clients. But when we can turn the corner, you almost see like this, a lifting of a weight.
Yep.
Because again, with understanding, you can start to find a direction.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's what a lot of people don't know, right? You feel like you're in prison because you don't know that there is a way out. Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, until you and I really got to having these conversations, I never realized that there was an opportunity to not feel guilty about an indulgence. Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, after all, I did make the money, but what if this happens or what if that happens? Until you get there, you don't know what the next steps are. Mm-hmm. And that's what life is about. It's about learning. It's about growing. But, you know, without meeting people like you and putting thought process like this into place, you just kind of stay stuck. Mm-hmm. So, guys, if this is you, and I'm going to say that it's most of us, if you've got issues like this, send us an email at connect@shannonrobnett.com and we will get you connected to Patrice and you'll be able to get all of her information and connect with her so you can have conversations just like this. And I will tell you this woman is genuine to the core and you will find more value than you ever thought possible with that connection. So I know this isn't typically what we bring here on the Real Estate Rundown. However, I also know that in our conversations and in our counselings, this has really improved my outlook and my perception of myself and my relationship with money. And I would honestly say it's helped me in my conversations and in my business dealings, because I can now help, at least I understand what's pulling, what's pushing. So Patrice, thank you so much for showing up and being a part of the Real Estate Rundown family and contributing in such a huge way to my life personally. And I look forward to our continued friendship. Guys, if you want to connect with this beautiful lady, connect at shannonrobnett.com. Until then, we'll see you on the next episode of the Real Estate Rundown.
Bye-bye.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Real Estate Rundown. Let these newfound strategies pave the way to start a successful career or a profound rebranding. If you loved everything you have heard, listen to more conversations at www.shannonrobnett.com. And be sure to leave a rating, share it with your friends, and subscribe. Until the next episode.